Welcome back to the 100 Fashion Films Project. Movie number 2 is the loosely biographical 1967 neo-noir film Bonnie and Clyde. The story is set in 1930s America and was influenced by the violent gangster films of that era, as well as the French New Wave movement of the 1950s. The costume design was by Theodora Van Runkel. Bonnie and Clyde marked both the start of her film costuming career and her relationship with star Faye Dunaway. The two worked on several films together, and Van Runkel actually created Dunaway's entire off-screen wardrobe at the time, which included this incredible gown worn by Dunaway to the 1968 Oscars. She was nominated for the Best Costume Design Oscar for her work on Bonnie and Clyde, and would receive 2 more nominations throughout her career. To create the costumes for the film, Van Runkel referenced a lot of photos of 1930s gangsters, including, of course, this famous series of images of the real-life Bonnie and Clyde. Several publicity photos for the film were basically shot-for-shot recreations of the original images. Van Runkel said she ran into legendary costume designer Edith Head while shopping for fabric, and when she described the project to her, Head's advice was to just dress her in chiffon. She, of course, did not do this, choosing to go her own way, creating looks more closely in line with the 30s looks that the real Bonnie wore, with updates to appeal to the late 60s audience. The character's signature look was bias-cut skirts, fitted sweaters, and, of course, berets. Dunaway's look in the film was such a hit that the US demand for berets following the film created a huge jump in production for manufacturers that were making these French hats. Warren Beatty as Clyde Barrow was outfitted in what would have been considered standard looks for men of the period, wearing sharply tailored suits that often included ties, vests, and pocket squares. And, of course, lots of fedoras. Some of Van Runkel's sketches show alternate shirt colors that may have been considered for the costuming, though the character ultimately ended up wearing mostly white shirts. The costuming from this film was instantly influential, inspiring both men and women to seek out vintage silhouettes. Clyde's double-breasted suits kicked off a resurgence of 1930s style menswear, and Bonnie's looks sent women across the country hunting through vintage stores and their grandmother's closets looking for authentic 1930s pieces. Not only did her look spike beret sales, but it also inspired a lot of people to look for long skirts during a time when minis would have been all the rage. I think the biggest reason that the style from this film was so appealing to audiences was that the vintage looks were paired with distinctly 60s styling, especially for Faye Dunaway. Her hairstyles were very clearly in line with what was trendy during the 60s, not the 30s, and her makeup featured pastel eyeshadow, cat eye lashes, and a more muted lip, versus the skinny brow, bold lip, and fluttery lash of the 1930s. The resulting looks created an imaginary 30s meets 60s version of the famous Bonnie and Clyde that has all but replaced our collective image of the infamous couple. I'm ranking the fashion a 9 out of 10 and the influence a 7 out of 10, making Bonnie and Clyde a 8 out of 10 overall as a fashion film.